everyone. Welcome back to TTELT, Teaching Tips for English Language Teachers. I'm Aileen Hale. I'm the COO of TTELT, and I'm here today to share with you the secret sauce. The topic is really related to is how to build communities of learners in your classrooms. So I'm going to start with a little story, thinking about you and your mother or grandmother. Not to be stereotypical here, but roll with this. Most of us have a favorite recipe that has been passed down from generation to generation, whether it be from your mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. There is some secret ingredient that made that recipe really unique. Not necessarily the ingredients in and of themselves, but what was that special little spice that grandma put into that recipe that you just loved and you couldn't recreate the recipe unless you had that special sauce? Why I'm emphasizing this is because I think we as teachers each have those ingredients to bring to our classroom. And what I mean by this is we're taught lots of methods throughout our teaching career and our preparation to be teachers, and the actualization of those methods, the pedagogy, the methodology. But what sometimes is missing is that little secret ingredient. What is it that really creates the atmosphere in the classroom for optimal learning environment? I think building communities of learners is of utmost importance to creating the ideal ambiance for learning in your classroom. So I'm going to share a personal story today about how I've done this in my classrooms. It can be done many, many different ways, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to share your experiences in my upcoming workshop on this topic on Saturday, July 17th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. At that time, you can share your ideas. But for now, I'm going to ask you to think about ways that you've done this before in your classrooms. I'm going to share a specific way that I did in my classroom. Now, let me start by adding, this was not even intentionally done. There were 3 quick examples I want to give you. One was one of our students was going back to Peru. I have a Spanish-speaking community in my classroom, and from many different countries, of Spanish-speaking countries. And one student was going back to Peru and wanted to have a going away party because we already had such a community and we became her community in America in our classroom that she wanted to say goodbye to us before she went back. So she invited us to her home and we all did kind of a potluck and shared foods from around Latin American countries. It was really great. We got to taste special recipes from different countries around the world and share why they're important to us. That experience was unique just because sharing food is really important to building community. So I understand now with COVID, this may or not be possible for a while, but even bringing some candies or some little thing to class, if you're able to start meeting in class again, is a really powerful way to share the meaning and build community, letting people bring foods from their country. Again, simple, easy things to transport and eat in class. Okay, that's one idea. The other one that happened naturally and unplanned in my classroom, we had students from Honduras, Mexico, Argentina, and Peru in the same class, and they all had extremely different experiences of how and why they came to America. And we had already been meeting as a class for a couple months, but this one class, because I speak Spanish, they feel comfortable often at the beginning of class talking in Spanish just as we wait for a couple people to come into class. So everyone was chatting away. And I want to share kind of a backdrop also. 2 of the students were extremely shy at the beginning of class and would barely talk. And this particular class, all of a sudden they came out of their shells. So what happened is the ones started talking about their experiences on a vacation with their children, and it led to a whole conversation that took the entire hour and a half of class in Spanish. And I kept thinking I wanted to interrupt the class and say, no, it's time for English. But at the same time, it felt like a real learning moment, and it was not the time to interrupt. So I let it go, kept thinking the conversation was going to die out and we'd jump into English. But at the end of an hour and a half, we had heard stories from Peru, from Mexico, and from Honduras and Argentina about how and why our students had come to America. The one really compelling one that captured all of us was the woman who came from Honduras and had to leave her children behind to try to get immigrant status in America, which she did successfully. And then she had to suffer really tough situations in America in order to go back and bring her children to America. And it was years of real suffering. I won't go into details, but to be able to come back to America finally with her children a few years later. It just really created a lot of empathy and compassion in our classroom for one another. What I also have a dynamic in my classroom, which I'm sure many of you do, is you have different levels of English language learners. No matter what class you're teaching, you tend to have, at least a little variation of their levels. So when I discovered this, I was actually trying to pair up the higher levels with the lower levels. And this started happening organically after this woman shared her story, because she was one of the lower levels and again, really inhibited to talk in class. But after she shared her story, the other students that were higher level naturally gravitated towards her to encourage her to speak more in English. And it just built a bond in class, which was really important to building that community. So to summarize this topic of building community, letting your students share their stories. I rarely let the whole class be in another language. I don't think I've ever done that before, honestly, but it was a very unique opportunity to create that community, and it definitely created bonds that I couldn't have created myself as a teacher. So storytelling is really impactful. You can do this intentionally in many ways. You can do it as outside homework assignment, asking your students to write and or record any aspect of their story in their first language and then translate it to English, share it back afterwards. You could have them share in small groups in your classroom. If you have more than one language group in your class, you could have the French speakers tell their stories together and then have to report back in English, and Spanish speakers in one group, or whatever your language groups are. There's many different ways. You as teachers are great at this, but building those pods, those groups of students to share their stories and share them back, and then be able to ask questions of one another. Again, I mentioned creating meals together. I think of us as teachers for building community as we are the conductor of the choir. We want to bring out their voices. You might have sopranos, altos, bass in your same class. So how do you get the ones that are quieter to be heard? So really facilitating that section to be brought out is very important. Other ways to build community, music is a great one. Allow students to bring songs to class, share songs that are really meaningful to them. If it's in their first language, have to have them translate even the chorus of the song and share why it's impactful for them, what the meaning is behind it. Sharing pictures, whether it's their personal pictures of a weekend, what they did over the weekend, what they did on a vacation, if they've been able to have any vacation, and tell the stories behind their pictures. And our pair students so that they ask and answer questions, the who, what, where, when, why of the pictures. Again, having the advanced learners be partnered with the lower level learners. I think of it like older siblings helping younger siblings. There's something that we really feel important and valued when we're able to help somebody else in a way that's empowering their learning. And it also enhances your learning when you have to teach somebody else. Allow them to have time in class and out of class to speak their native language and do kind of, like I said, reporting back in English. Playing icebreaker games, charades or Pictionary is a great one because it creates a lot of laughter, and laughter is fantastic for building community. It breaks the ice, brings down that affective filter. And last, I just want to say, encouraging their ideas for topics, if you're able to, outside the curriculum or enhancing the curriculum that they really want to add to. For example, when I asked my students, what English do you really need and want to know in America now that you're in the community? And one of their topics was going shopping at the grocery store and going to a restaurant and ordering food. So we set up a mock restaurant in our classroom, and I let them role play as one was the waitress or waiter and one was ordering, and we switched around different restaurant scenes from a coffee shop to a full-blown restaurant. And we brought in little fake menus, paper menus for them to order from, and learned all the vocabulary ahead of time. That's a great way also to build community and letting them play the different roles. So I appreciate your joining us today, and I want to invite you to join the workshop on July 17th, when I'll let you share your ideas for how you've created community in your classroom, and we will do some activities with you to additionally add to your repertoire of how to create communities. I'm going to wrap up here by sharing upcoming events, not only my workshop. So don't forget, at the end of every month, we have our TTELT Talks, where we bring together teachers from all over the world to share topics that are most interesting and impactful for you. You get to generate the topic and be a facilitator of talking. I may be the facilitator, you'll be doing the talking. So join us Saturday, June 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the topics that matter most to you. Finally, thanks for tuning in today. Follow us at ttelt.org, our website, our Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter. You can find all those on our website. We'll look forward to seeing you at our next workshop or event. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day.